With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the PowerCat Insiders Podcast, your Monday afternoon treat all sports season. We gather, well, we don't really gather anymore. We meet via Zoom so that I don't have to be around Matt Walters, and we talk K-State sports. In this case, we're talking about Kansas State's opening football game against Arkansas State. The Wildcats did lose 35-31, as you well know, and we will kind of break that down. What went wrong, what went right, if there was any of that, and we're going to have some fun with it. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of GoPowerCat.com, and joining me via the internet is Matt Walters of the K-State Radio Network. There's a fancier name, I know, Matt, but that's what you are. He was on the field, stuck in a corner like he should be on Saturday, but he had a different angle than we would. And Travis Tannehill, a man of many things, including being part of the pregame show for Kansas State football. They are this week's insiders. We'll be joined by Ryan Black later on, maybe, I don't know. He's missing, honestly. So if you see Ryan Black, please point him in our direction. The internet is tough to navigate. He probably got lost. We are sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Does your company or your employer spend $4,000 or more a year on energy bills? Would you like to reduce those costs by 25% or more and maintain the same level of service and reliability? If so, it's time to speak with Blue Mark Energy. Blue Mark Energy, K-State owned and K-State proud. Gentlemen, welcome, and I wish we had a better topic than that 35-31 stinker. Matt, you were just talking about it a little bit before we got started. How odd was the environment on Saturday with limited fans and you kind of being stuck in a corner as a sideline reporter?
I kind of like Bill Belichick's response yesterday after the Patriots game, where he said he was asked if he'd ever seen anything like it, and his one-word response was practice. It wasn't like practice, but it reminded me of a spring game setup with the fans being spread out. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. Just with everything mixed in, and the fact that the Cats didn't play all that well, I think led to that. It was just an odd environment. I found myself thinking about and looking for different things than usual. I was pretty much at the back of the end zones. And usually the only time I'm in the end zones is when a game-winning field goal is about to be attempted. So it was an odd environment. It was a beautiful day. I mean, thankful for the weather, but it was a difficult football game to watch, and we'll get into that here over the next 40 minutes or so.
Travis is a former player and one of our analysts at GoPowerCat. Did you just kind of watch that game and from the very beginning couldn't help yourself but wince a little bit at some of the problems K-State was going through?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to reiterate kind of just what Matt said. I mean, it just felt, spring game's probably the best analogy or the best comparison I've seen. I mean, it was definitely more than practice, but the energy level seemed pretty high once those guys got out there, but then, it kind of dropped off relatively quickly. And so, it was just an odd atmosphere, an odd energy from the players, odd energy from the fan section and the student section. So it was just kind of a weird way to play football. But unfortunately, I mean, that's how the rest of the season is going to be. So these guys better figure out how to bring that energy and bring that emotion, because I don't think anything's going to be changing for home games or away games for the rest of the 2020 season. So they got to figure out a way to play better, play with more emotion, and just play more crisp football, because what they put out there on Saturday was not their best foot forward. So,
guys, heading into this game, I was mildly concerned about the offensive line. I know the challenges have been significant. I know it's very difficult what they've gone through in trying to rebuild an offensive line. But I got to admit, it was a little bit worse than I imagined. And I think it was compounded by the fact that Noah Johnson goes down on snap number 3 of the game, which, I mean, when you got an inexperienced line, but you have a leader at center that the guys respect, even if he doesn't have a lot of experience, it impacts you tremendously. Still, they couldn't pass protect. They couldn't run block. Matt, this is a problem. And luckily they have an extra week here to try to get it fixed, but I don't know if there's an easy solution to this.
Yeah, I don't know that there's an easy solution other than next man up. And there are a number of guys that have to get better, and they've got to get better right now. I was concerned after Noah went out. Then he did come back in and played a little bit of right guard, but it's concerning for me because of what looks to be not just the right arm, and I don't know this for sure, but it just appeared to me that maybe it's a right elbow injury. The contraption that they had him in was similar to, what you would see maybe a few years ago after, like a knee procedure where you can only bend your knee so far. And, he played right guard a couple series, and then we didn't see him the rest of the day. What I think that says is, okay, K-State's played one game, and if you're wondering, the value of Noah Johnson is sky high. The fact that a redshirt freshman who's your center goes out right away, and then, things don't go very well after that, that tells you something about the progress that he had made. You hope he's back for Oklahoma. But, if I remember the number from Saturday, once he went out, Fitz and Travis, I started counting the short snaps. And if you combine the short snaps from Adler and the rocket that Hayden Gillum fired by Skylar Thompson, I believe there were 6 snaps that were Aaron, and that can throw the timing off right away, and that's something that Travis can talk about. But that's not good for Kansas State. They had difficulty, as you said, run blocking, pass blocking, and I don't want to say it's going to be that way all year because it's not. Those guys are going to get better. They're not seasoned. That's something to watch though, because everybody knew it going in, and Connor Riley's got his work cut out for him, and Skylar Thompson and the running backs, they all have to do their part to make that offensive line better, in my opinion.
I'm going to be blunt here, Travis. I'm not sure Kansas State has a offensive tackle ready to play the Big 12 level, and that's concerning because that could impact your old position, tight end, because now the viable throwing option of tight end, suddenly they have to stay in a little bit more to help out. Stop me if this is causing nightmares for you, but this is a major problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really, I mean, that's the weird part about that offensive line is last year they had a lot of experience and they still struggled last year at times. And then now this year they have very little experience. And I'm with you. That offensive line is and was my biggest worry going into this season. And just real quick, touching on Noah Johnson again, it kind of reminds me like a BJ Finney. He started as a freshman. His freshman year, he had some major struggles as a freshman, and just people don't realize how important that center position is. That's everything comes from that center and moves outwards. And so it's easy for me as a tight end. I'm the third, fourth guy making a decision where that center, if he makes an incorrect call, the play doesn't really have a chance. So that offensive line really along the whole entire front needs to improve with Coach Riley there. Because like you mentioned, we saw some impressive potential from the tight ends with Riley and some of the fullbacks and running backs. It did some nice things. But, yeah, if our running backs and our tight ends are having to stay in the whole entire game to help out these offensive tackles, then, our wide receivers better be really good because they're going to have to win they're going to have to win a lot when they don't have favorable numbers in the passing game.
Now let's talk about something fun. Deuce Vaughn. Oh, my gosh. Did you get some flashbacks there, Matt? The way he's so shifty and he kind of just disappears and pops out, and he jump cut at one point that he's fun to watch. I could speak a long time, but what did you see from him?
I'm not going to call him D. Sproles yet, but obviously that's the guy that he reminds you of. He's so shifty. And the thing that jumped out to me most about him was really after the game, getting to talk with him. He's very football savvy. He's smart. We talked about his pass blocking before we went on the air in post game, and he knows that's the area he's got to get. He's got to get better at. He's got to make the most improvement there. He's only about 170 pounds right now. He wants to get to 180. He understands the game. He's got the ability to make moves that most humans can't, and he's going to be tremendous. Keep all things being equal, keep the injury bug out of it. He's going to make a lasting impact on this football program, and what I really look forward to seeing from him is not just those spinning jukes and making guys miss. I mean, he broke a couple ankles on Saturday, but how does Kansas State use him in the passing game? Because I think there is a real opportunity to use him as the season goes along, as we get deeper into the year, as the years go along. On Saturday, K-State was down 3 or 4 wide receivers, and I thought he might see the football a little bit more there. But again, he's as green as grass. He's just getting started. His impact, though, is going to be a lasting one in the Little Apple.
And Travis, the best news is this season doesn't count. I mean, he can be a freshman again next year. This is all like bonus. This is amazing for a kid like that to get up to 10 free games, or 11 if they actually have bowl games, just by playing. I mean, it's incredible, an opportunity for guys like this.
Yeah, when you look at just live snaps, I mean, as we saw, practice is one thing, but there's nothing you can't. It's really, really difficult, if not impossible, to duplicate live game snaps. Where he was able to get a handful of snaps this last game, and I mean, I just remember back to my playing days. I mean, from a freshman, I would, get maybe 10 snaps a game in double tight situation. Then a sophomore, I was starting, and as a sophomore, I didn't know what was going on half the time, and I was just trying to, keep my shoelaces tied. And then by the time you get that whole first season under your belt, by the time you're a junior or a senior, you feel pretty confident, and you're starting to get into the more intricacies of football, and you're playing smarter and faster and all that fun stuff, and you're really able to play to your full potential. So yeah, look for this year. He's kind of drinking water out of a fire hose. But as towards the tail end of the season and moving into next year, these reps are invaluable for him. He's going to be a really special player. Like you mentioned, keep the injury bug out of him. He should be a real special player for a lot of years to come.
Fitzy, he said his nervousness level, his butterflies were about an 8 on snap number 1, and then within a couple of snaps they were down to a 4, which says a lot.
Yep.
They could have stayed at an 8 the entire game, but what stands out to me about this young man is just wait till he gets that experience under his belt. Along with gaining weight and improving his pass blocking, he said, I need the game to slow down. And I think he is a player, and it's not the same for everybody. He is a player where I really think because of his pedigree and his background and how much he has been involved in this game since he was shorter than 5'5", he is going to have the game slowed down for him much, much earlier than your typical player. And that's going to be exponential in terms of his progress and his growth as a running back.
An important update here. Ryan Black is stuck in a meeting. He claims it's about work. I think it's about NASCAR. I think he's in a special NASCAR.
We'll give Catfish the benefit of the doubt.
Yep. Okay, so he will join us next week, and hopefully we'll have a Catfish update. I'm just watching Deuce Vaughn is fun. I mean, and you could see, he tried to throw a cut block on a defensive end in the game that just didn't go well. But that gets right to your point. The game needs to slow down for him. He seemed in a hurry to do that, and the defensive end completely read what he was up to and stepped around him. But he's going to get better about that. And always pass blocking is going to be a challenge for him. D. Sproles overcame it. He learned how to get up underneath guys. But the one thing he doesn't have that D. Sproles has was the sheer leg strength. That was just so incredible. And maybe that develops as he ages, but that can help you a lot in that blocking because you can get up underneath those guys' pads and just be a pest.
I would Travis Tannehill like a guy like that coming up, under me if Travis was a defensive end or something, and you have to learn where to hit him, how to hit him, and when to get out of the way. But again, I just think by what he talked about after the game, he's got to get a little bit stronger, and really he looks strong right now for his size. He's just a little fella. I mean, the only guy on the team shorter than he is Blake Lynch. So I'm excited. I can't wait to watch this young man grow in purple.
Another freshman, Travis, that saw 2 snaps. Will Howard, he got thrown into the meat grinder with a quarterback run that just got blown up. He had no chance. But then a really nice throw down the middle of the field, and it's like, here's a little teaser of what I can do. Okay, I'm going out of the game. We need Skyler as a team. They need Skyler really to lock in and improve and play better than he did on Saturday. But, boy, that little glimpse of Will Howard was like, oh, yeah, I can see it now. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it just proves – I mean, there were some bright things that came out of that game on Saturday. And Deuce is one of them, getting a little bit of glimpse of Will Howard. And that's what – I mean, one – building depth at all positions, especially the quarterback position, is never a bad thing. If Skyler tests positive on a COVID test or even just gets hurt like quarterbacks do a lot of times, it'll be nice to have a young kid who has some snaps. And, I mean, the physical potential is there for Will Howard. I mean, he's a guy that's, got the arm strength and has the athleticism to be the quarterback at Kansas State for the future once Skyler's out of here. So it's nice to see him get some reps, but kind of what we just talked about with Deuce. I mean, I'm sure that game's going a million miles an hour for Will Howard right now, especially at the quarterback position. So even if Skyler struggles, as a fan base, I mean, don't expect to be seeing Will Howard in there. Yeah. I mean, this is Skyler's team. Skyler's proven and earned that spot, and Skyler's a better quarterback than Will Howard is right now. But moving forward, and if Skyler goes down, we've got a pretty good backup in there to be able to handle the reins if called upon.
What I'm still trying to figure out, fellas, is how Skylar Thompson got up from that hit. I mean, that to me, that goes to the strength and conditioning that these guys go through, because I don't know how his neck didn't snap. And on a different note, when Wayne Jones lowered his head and laid motionless on his stomach, I mean, I was scared like crazy because you could see it coming. But K-State came out of that game a little dinged up, but I'm still puzzled how Skyler got up and was still able to play after that. Now, that was the hit that kind of messed him up, and it would any normal human being. But wow, that one was that his cage still has to be a little bit rattled 48 hours later.
Yeah, that was not a graceful fall. I mean, landing with all your weight on the top of your head, that's just kind of a freak thing that happened in that game. And I don't know. I'm not sure Skyler was the same after that. He's admitted afterwards he was pretty rattled, but I think it did impact his play. Hey, we've got a tight end on the call. Let me ask him about Briley Moore. What'd you think of the new tight end?
Shoot, I mean, he's fun to watch. He looks like a tight end running out there, which is good to see. I mean, I know we've had some big guys who have been big blockers, and we've had some some little guys that were basically fullbacks or large wide receivers. But I mean, he's big, he's fast, he can run good routes. He caught the ball well with 6 catches. So it's really nice to see an offense and a coaching staff prioritize getting the ball to tight end. And that was probably always my biggest frustration. I mean, one, we won a lot of games, so I'm not ever going to complain. But, I mean, you just got to use the tight end. No. Do you want Tyler Lockett having the football in their hands or Travis Tannehill with their football in the hands? Like, of course, we all want Tyler Lockett with the ball in his hands. But throwing the ball to the tight end for a 5, 7, 8, 12-yard gain every once in a while keeps everyone else, keeps that defense honest. So using those tight ends to their advantage, using those fullbacks helps open up the rest of that passing game. It's been exciting to see Briley Moore. We haven't had a really good tight end in a very long time. I would say even prior to me, I'd say Matt Strud was probably the the last time we had a really dangerous pass threat at tight end. So it's exciting to see. Looks like he was having fun. A senior guy. Should be a good season for him, and him and Skylar look like they had a good connection already.
And that's just what I was going to bring up, Fitzy, is I'm glad Travis said, Jaron, we've done this the better part of a quarter century now, Fitz. You tell me a tight end that Bill Snyder had with those tools.
Yeah. I mean, I
don't know that you can come up with one.
I might have to go back to Shad Meyer or someone like that. I mean,
and what's also interesting, and Travis can speak to this a little bit more, is you can tell right now that Skylar Thompson's security blanket is Briley Moore. It's not Knowles. It's not Taylor. It's probably not YB, Youngblood, who didn't play on Saturday and didn't suit up. That is his security blanket, and there's going to be more that we're going to see from him. I cannot wait to see, him zipping down the seam. And I had flashbacks on Saturday. He's not Winston Dimmel, but he's a guy you can put in the backfield. But the pop pass right down the middle of the field or right down the hash marks, I can see Briley Moore fitting that role beautifully as the year progresses.
Yeah, 6 catches, 54 yards, touchdown. And guys, he didn't get the ball enough in my book. I love throwing to the tight end. I like what it does to a defense, what it causes them to do as a reaction. And plus, when you got a guy like that, I'm not trying to compare him to Travis Kelce, but at the college level, he could probably accomplish some of the same things Kelce does over the middle and then doing something after the catch. It was awfully, awfully fun to watch. And guys, I think Saturday's game proves something that we've said at Kansas State for a long, long time. There's players everywhere. This kid came from Northern Iowa. He's a grad transfer from the FCS level, and he is living proof of how good some of those players are at that level, that he can just walk in the door and supplant a veteran guy like Nick Leonard, who in his defense has been very dinged up. But also you flip that over to the Arkansas State sideline. Jonathan Adams was a 2-star recruit. And granted, he was a tall, skinny kid, and now he's a tall brick house. But there's just kids out there that can play. And let's be blunt, Jonathan Adams was the best football player on the field on Saturday, and K-State could not stop him. We'll get into more of that as we take a break here on the PowerCat Insiders podcast. We've talked a lot of offense, but how about that defense? There's plenty of topics there.
The PowerCat podcast will be right back.
Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They're made from the rarest organic cotton and designed to get even softer over time. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee plus 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. So head to BOLLandbranch.com today. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
We now send it back to the PowerCat podcast.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Insiders podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Matt Walters, Travis Tannehill. We have determined that Ryan Black cannot join us. He's busy. He's on a phone call. That's all right. He'll be back next week. That's like an added treat. Like the start of the season gets good with the three of us, and it gets better when we add Catfish in next week. We're sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Blue Mark Energy is a natural gas products and services provider serving feed yards, hospitals, hotels, manufacturers, and school districts throughout the Midwest. And Blue Mark Energy is the natural gas provider for the Kansas State campuses in Manhattan and Salina. You might want to give them a call. Blue Mark Energy, K-State owned and K-State proud. Guys, I mentioned this coming into break. The defense. Look, we can complain about the offensive line. People want to complain about Skyler. People want to complain about Harry Trotter. They want to talk about drops. At the end of the day, Kansas State scored 31 points. And I'm sorry, when you're playing at home, even in that environment against Arkansas State, 31 should be enough to win the game. They gave up 35 points to this team, which was a well-defined offense. They knew what they wanted to do against Kansas State. But I didn't expect to have this level of concern coming out of this game with Kansas State's defense. But they can't be giving up passes and plays and points like they did on Saturday.
Arkansas State went after Ryan Hennington. Jerron McPherson didn't play. And I think what surprised me most about the defense was I think AJ struggled a little bit. Now, again, granted, he didn't play in the bowl game. He hadn't played, in months since he got hurt at the end of last year. But I was impressed when I watched Jonathan Adams against Memphis, more than a week ago. And Fitz, you're right. He was the best player on the field. And that is why Fitz may not invite me back after what I'm about to say. And I love Ryan Wallace, and I love the guys you've had on your staff. But when it comes to recruiting rankings, pay zero attention to them. There are 5 stars that stink, and there are 1 stars and no stars that wind up playing in the NFL. Jonathan Adams is a dude, and he has no business telling you he's a dude. And this, again, won't sound right. His dad played at Arkansas State, and his dad had an NFL career. That guy is a Power 5 wide receiver, period, end of sentence. And Arkansas State is unbelievably fortunate to have him wearing red, black, and white, because that guy can play. I'd want him on my team. And think about this, and Trav can chime in. Think about the difference between Jonathan Adams and Knowles/Taylor. Knowles/Taylor is trying to get there. They're trying to get to that level, and they're not quite there yet. And that's why I said a moment ago, the security blanket for Skylar Thompson is Briley Moore. Because if K-State hits a couple of those long passes to Malik and to Shabastin, K-State wins that ball game. I'm not sure. I'm not sold that they ran their route. I thought they bent their routes. People will blame Skylar Thompson, but I didn't like where those guys got to at the top of their routes, and I think that's why that combination didn't click between Skylar and those two on Saturday.
Yeah, Matt, I'm with you, and we'll touch on that real quick because I did want to sneak that in the show somewhere. I'm with you. I thought 3, 4, 5 times on some down the field throws, those K-State wide receivers broke off when Skylar was throwing them open, and they looked not on the same page. So Skylar's stats don't look great, but I'm with you. I think 4 or 5 of those receptions are on the receiving core, not Skylar. But jumping back to this Kansas State defense, I mean, the defense almost looked like – I felt really bad for that coaching staff because I felt like they were putting the guys in the right position, and those guys just aren't quite confident enough to go outside of where they're supposed to be. I mean, that's when a defense really is great, when they're, all right, we know our rules, we're supposed to be in this general vicinity, but if I see the ball, I'm going to go get the ball. And there was a couple times where, looked like those safeties and those defensive backs, and they were playing by the rule book almost too much. And that's a lack of experience, lack of confidence, not wanting to mess up. Where when you're a defensive back, I mean, sometimes you just got to go play. And it was like, hey, we got 3 guys covering a tight end streaking down the field, and we got Jonathan Adams one-on-one on a corner. Like, hey, let's help a guy out. And I know that's not necessarily what the definition of the coverage says, but let's cheat a little bit and let's use our brain and play outside that box a little bit to make sure we're helping our guys out. Because that's what it looked like to me, was just those guys were following the rule book to the T, and they weren't playing football.
Fitzy, Mitzi, one thing I think happened as well in talking to Justin Hughes after the ball game is I think Arkansas State did a good job of getting him out of the middle of the field. They ran a lot of slants. There was a play where Justin did get back and knock a pass down, but he commented on that after the game that there was some rust, but he felt he played pretty well. But Arkansas State was determined to get him moved around because I think they may have felt he was the best defensive player on the field, even though he missed all of last year. Did I expect Arkansas State to get over 400 yards of offense? I did, to be honest, because of how they throw it. What got me was their running attack. Yeah. They should not be able to run the ball like that on Kansas State. And, kind of like what Trav said is, you felt for the defense. There were a couple times I felt for Joe Klanderman because you're in that position now, first year defensive coordinator, especially late in the game. I was curious to see if K-State was going to dial it up, if they were going to come with some unique blitz, something exotic, something different, get after the quarterback for Arkansas State. And it's a tough position to be in right out of the chute. And, this is a defense that's going to get better. I fully expect this defense to play better against Oklahoma. We'll see if they do. But, it was a long day on Saturday for that side of the football.
Well, they were just kind of outnumbering K-State to one side of the field. They schematically had K-State in a box where if they had if the hat-on-hat got their jobs done, the running back had no one to tackle them except guys coming across the field, and they got to that repeatedly. I thought when you back up and look at the game, I thought Justin Hughes was really good, particularly in the second half. He really seemed to settle in a little bit. But bluntly put, Wyatt Hubert, Travis, has to be more disruptive than he was. And I'm looking at him on that last drive, and he's just kind of dancing with his tackle, and he's really not involved in any of the plays as that Arkansas State team's moving down the field to win the game.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest surprise on the defensive side. I mean, like Matt said, an Arkansas State team, they're going to throw the ball pretty well. They're going to get some yards, and they're going to put some points up. But Wyatt Hubert was pretty non-existent other than the personal foul penalty he had. So, which was probably a cause of his frustration for not being able to get much done. So, a guy like that, a defense has a lot of work to do. You expect your guys like Wyatt Hubert, Elijah Sullivan, Justin Hughes. You need those guys to play, to bring their A game, because you got a lot of other spots that you're more worried about than your star defensive ends. So he didn't play great, and obviously some room for improvement on that front as well.
Yeah, the defensive line, they didn't really lose the battle. I thought they did okay, but they got to be better. They got to be better than what they were, because there was no real disruption and guys were able to run their routes, and the quarterbacks never felt a degree of discomfort that you need to stop these offenses that want to come at you this way.
When you think of Wiley and Huggins, and then the newcomers like Robert Hentz, Derek Newton, again, guys that are going to come along, guys that are athletic. From A to Z on this football team, there's more athleticism than there has been. I equate this to wide receiver work. K-State hasn't, probably since Tyler Lockett, they haven't had that guy at receiver that is the go-to guy, the playmaker, the guy that you better game plan against because he can beat you. Well, up front, at defensive tackle, who's the last guy that Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, Iowa State, whomever, they've had to center a game plan around that guy when you talk about K-State's defensive front? K-State has not been able to put defensive pressure on quarterbacks for, 6, 7, 8 years? And that was problematic on Saturday. And, again, the recruiting is getting there, but that's, to me, that is another place K-State's got to find one of those guys. And, they're hard to come by, but somebody in the trenches on the defensive line that can take over a game and dominate and require a double team more often than not. What K-State has is good, serviceable, I don't know if it's the next level. I expect them to get better, but in K-State's always going to play a lot of guys. So watching that defensive front is going to be, critical as this year goes along too.
Travis, I headed into the season optimistic about catching Oklahoma early. I'm not that optimistic right now. I watched some of that Oklahoma game, and, folks are playing Missouri State, which is a dreadful team that isn't even really playing this fall. They're just collecting money. They have a home-and-home series at Central Arkansas that'll really sell the tickets. I don't know what to take away from their game, but I know this. Kansas State better have one hell of an off week to get prepared heading into game week with Oklahoma if it wants a chance when it goes to Norman. There are so many holes in this dam to plug. I wish the coaches the best of luck getting it solved.
Yeah, Oklahoma, obviously always a national powerhouse, let alone a Big 12 powerhouse. And that game against Missouri State was impressive. Last year, I don't know what, that was the most fun game of the year last year was watching K-State whoop up on OU. But we're not going to sneak up on them this year. So I'm sure OU has had this Kansas State game circled since about last January. So we're not going to sneak up on them. We're going to see. I'm with you. It's going to be a. They better put a heck of a game plan together. They better roll the dice. Probably half dozen trick plays or so if you want to get it done. Just realistically, mano-a-mano, man-to-man. We're outnumbered pretty much across every single. Most of the positions across the board. So it's going to be an uphill battle. Not saying, there's a reason we play the game, but it's going to be a tough battle down there in Norman. And we'll see how it goes, but I'm not optimistic like you.
No, it's not. Guys, I went into this game with Arkansas State almost with the vibe that it was a preseason NFL game. But it counts. It counts. There's no denying that. But I don't know what tangible impact it has going forward other than the fact that we got to see that there are some issues with this team. For me, this season really is about comparing yourself to other Big 12 teams, get into Big 12 and see what happens. But even then, I have this feeling about this season. At the end of the year, there'll be one team that thinks it was a legitimate season, and that's the team that won the national title, and everyone else will say, it was a pandemic. There was
didn't count
stuff. It didn't count. But the chance of this team carrying this Arkansas State game forward, Matt, just seems nominal to me. I think they're just going to reset, regroup, and they're going to be so focused on the things they see they did wrong that now it's really about Big 12 play. And even if they lose at Oklahoma, this team still can have a good season. There are offensive weapons. There are defensive weapons. They just need to get pulled together a lot better.
And you don't know if they're going to be available every week with COVID, with injuries. I equate 2020 as this for this coaching staff. They can do a lot of things maybe they normally don't do, but they also they're going to get a lot of guys better. They're going to see a lot of things they might not normally see. It's like golf in terms of you get a mulligan. It counts. Guys don't lose eligibility. It counts because what Kansas State can turn into in year two of Chris Klieman is very, to me, is impressive what they can do. They're recruiting at a high level. They've got the buzz there, but now can they make guys better in a year that overall doesn't count, but but to me, behind the scenes, it counts. And I think that's how K-State will come out. They could get their doors blown off at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I hope Oklahoma is thinking, K-State beat us last year, but man, they got beat by Arkansas State. We can look down the road. It's at home. We got this. No big deal. I hope they have that attitude. Not that K-State will go in and win, but you think about the times where K-State's been an underdog. They've gone into Norman. They played pretty well for a long time. K-State played Oklahoma better in Norman than they did at home. And I like, as odd as this sounds, what 2020 presents this football program because if guys can stay away from COVID and can stay healthy, they're going to get some unbelievably valuable work in that's going to pay dividends down the road. You don't see it now. You're not at practice every day, but, man, I'm telling you, when you talk about spring ball, hoping there is spring ball in 21, I think this is going to become an advanced football team as we move through the fall and into 2021.
Trav, if you were a senior on this team, let's go back to your senior season, and they said, hey, your eligibility didn't count. Do you want to play next year? Would you have, and do you think some guys will come back for an extra senior year?
I mean, looking back, yeah, I definitely would have. In the moment, would I have? Well, I think there's a lot of guys that have that NFL dream, and I was one of those guys. So I think that's going to be, if you're a borderline guy like I was, you might be tempted to go chase that NFL dream. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, yeah, if you're a top 3 draft pick, yeah, get the heck out of here, go make some money. You got your degree. But for those borderline guys, that'll be interesting to watch unfold. And then obviously the guys that really don't have a shot at the NFL, I mean, shoot, take it, enjoy football as long as you can, because once it's gone, there's nothing, you can't duplicate it. And it's something that you definitely miss. Real quick, Matt, I did want to ask you one question. Sorry to throw in a question here, Fitz, but how much of effect did you think Arkansas State, with them already having a game under their belt? If Kansas State already had a game under their belt, I think Kansas State probably wins that ball game. I thought there was a lot of rust that got shaken off. How critical do you think that was for the outcome of this game, just not having Kansas State obviously being the home opener and Arkansas State already having one game under their belt?
Very critical. I think Arkansas State looked like the relaxed football team. I thought they looked like the comfortable football team. They had a game plan. They knew that they could come into K-State and win, and they did. But I think that's, that was a good foundation for them. They didn't play, they didn't play Truman State. They didn't play Northeastern State. They didn't play, Humpty in their first game. They played Memphis. And I'll be honest, I thought K-State would be better than Memphis. But they looked like they knew they were going to make plays, Travis, and they did make plays. And I tell you what, you have to salute their head coach. Think about the guys that spent 1 year as head coach at Arkansas State and where they are now. And Blake Anderson is still there. The guy can coach, and that's a hot spot for Division I transfers. And kudos to them, man. They've been tearing it up for years, and then in case they got that. But there was no doubt in my mind when they started that last drive, Travis, did you think Arkansas State was going to win the game?
Yeah.
And why?
Yep. And about the whole second half, I had very, very little confidence. I was just like, we're going to lose this game. They look like the better team. They've got the momentum. They're playing with more emotion. I was like, Kansas State does not deserve to win this game. And it just felt like, an upset ripe to happen that second half.
You knew exactly where the football was going to go in case they couldn't get it stopped. And that's what, guys, if you boil a lot of the water out of it, come out of halftime, Chris Klieman said to me, one of the things he said to me is, we are not making one-on-one plays. And K-State didn't make one-on-one plays really for the entirety of the 60 minutes. Arkansas State did. That's why they won the game.
Yep.
Very good. They are the insiders. That's Matt Walters and Travis Tannehill. I'm Tim Fitzgerald. We appreciate you joining us this week as we were a man down. Ryan Black will be back next week with what was his segment there, Matt, that we had last year? Catfish's, I don't know. It's a stupid story.
It's catfish. He had a rant.
Oh, he had the rant. We need to get that sold. We need like a sponsor just for the rant.
We need what's the word? It just escaped me. A marina. We need a marina Total or at Milford or somewhere to sponsor the Catfish Rant.
I like it. I like it. Well, we will convene every Monday from now until the end of basketball, if we have basketball. So many questions about this sports season still loom ahead, but K-State did play a football game, not well, but they did get one in the books, a 35-31 loss to Arkansas State. A week off. We will not take it off on Monday. We'll come up with some topics to talk about as the Cats prepare to go to Norman, Oklahoma in a couple Saturdays and return to that big noon Fox slot and maybe acquit themselves a little bit better. Thanks, boys. Appreciate you joining us.
See you next week.
PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
If you want to win your fantasy football league, it starts right now. The offseason is the best time to get ahead of the competition. We'll help you win your league on the Fantasy Football Today podcast, part of CBS Sports Podcast Network. Fantasy Football Today has 3 episodes every week following the latest news, giving you early rankings, early sleepers, breakouts, and busts. So if you're a dedicated fantasy football manager, check out the most dedicated podcast, Fantasy Football Today. Download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere podcasts are found.